Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective. And today will be no different. Today's topic is going to be a little bit controversial. And the reason why it's going to be a little bit controversial is because there are those who have a very optimistic point of view about where we're going in terms of our health and healthcare and all of these other things. But what I want to do is essentially keep it very, very real with you and give you a perspective that is a common sense perspective. It doesn't require studies. It doesn't require you to be a healthcare professional like me. It doesn't require you to work as a healthcare professional in the hospital. It doesn't require you to have worked for the FDA like I did. It doesn't require you to travel the world and see and live in other cultures and experience what their healthcare and their food is like. It doesn't require any of that. It just simply requires your common sense. And in my opinion, we've been walked into early graves. And every day we're being walked into early graves. And we have no idea because they have distorted the connection between not only food and disease, but how we live our actual lives on a daily basis. And so today I'm going to talk about the systems that are in place that are not only keeping us obese, depressed, sick, but are literally costing us days, months, years, and decades off of our lives. And so I'm going to talk about those systems. Many of the systems some of the systems I've been a part of, and some of the systems I've become aware of as being a part of the problem, especially here in America. But some of these systems are also now in place in other countries as well too. Having the ability to travel like I've traveled to over 80 countries. I've lived in 4 or 5 different countries. I lived in Okinawa, Japan for 4.5 years. I lived in Africa. I lived in India. I lived in all parts of Asia. I've lived in Caribbean islands. And so having the ability to have traveled and lived in other countries and to experience their food compared to here, and to experience their healthcare system compared to here, and to experience their culture compared to here, when you come back to America, you start to understand what you didn't understand beforehand. Before, it was just part of the culture. It's just part of, this is how we do things here. But what I'm learning is that our culture here has been hijacked. It's been hijacked by not only the system, but it's been hijacked by those who are above the system, who are controlling and puppeting those people who are creating the policies, the regulations, the laws, the agencies that are essentially creating how we eat, that are determining what food is available, that is determining how much we work, and that is determining, what we're being exposed to on a daily basis. And for that reason, this is why, I'm saying that these systems are creating dis-ease in America. Now, let me say this before I get started, because being in the position that I am now, um, and having reclaimed my health to the level that I've reclaimed my health, as you guys know, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure at the age of 16. And I lived with it for over a decade until I came into the realization of what true healing was instead of treatment. And what I can tell you is this, is that at this point in my journey, I understand the importance of taking ownership. I understand the importance of not only having knowledge, but the application of knowledge, because that's a true measure of power. It's not knowledge, because we live in the age of information. People literally could go to their phones and get information that 10,000 years ago in Egypt, you would literally have to be in a sacred society to get. And so we live in the age of information. Knowledge isn't being, kept secret. Knowledge isn't, listen, 2,000 years ago, even less, you were persecuted for having certain knowledge. If you were to go back a couple of thousand years ago, and you were to say the world is not flat, if you were to say that, then you could be hung, jailed, and even stoned. Okay. So today there are similar things. Like I constantly get censored. A lot of times people never see my content, but we're not getting stoned and jailed for being able to attain knowledge. You can simply go to your device, go and punch in whatever it is you want to learn about, whether it be chess, whether it be about botany and the study of plants, whether it be the study of plant medicine, how to grow food. There's absolutely no limitation on what you can learn today. So I realized that there is an important factor called taking ownership. But it's important to know and understand most people have been programmed out of the ability to even know that they need to take ownership for anything. And as a result of that, this is why we're sick today. Okay. Now, what I will say is this. I'm in a very unique position because I've been on both sides of the grass. I started out in healthcare. I've been in healthcare. I know I don't look like it, but I've been in healthcare for over 20 years. Over 20 years. That's over 2 decades. Okay. And with that being said, I have seen things in healthcare that now looking back with the perspective I have now, I understand them very differently. And working in the hospital as a clinician, working for the FDA and learning that process and seeing other healthcare systems in place and experiencing those modalities and treatments that are used for simple things like high blood pressure and I've never seen anybody healed. Okay. Again, there's a huge difference between treatment and healing. Treatment, it means that you have to take whatever it is for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter if it's a high blood pressure medication, diabetes medication. It doesn't matter if you're taking something for male pattern baldness. Most people, when you stop taking the medication, guess what? It stops working. As soon as you stop taking it, the blood pressure skyrockets. As soon as you stop taking it, your blood sugars go through the roof. As soon as you stop taking it, your hair starts falling out again. Okay? That's not healing. That's treatment. Okay? And treatment puts you in a position where you have to be a customer for the rest of your life. And that was the perception that I had walking into healthcare, was that was healing. I give you this medication, it removes the symptoms, and you're healed. That was my perception of it. But what I started to realize working in the hospital as a clinician was that people were having strokes and heart attacks every day. And even though they were taking the exact medications that they needed to take, that they were prescribed, they were taking them the right way, they were taking them the right times of day, they still were having heart attacks and strokes. Most people who have a heart attack and stroke are on medication when they have the heart attack or stroke. Most people who have, issues, around autoimmune diseases, around cancer, most of them are on medication when they have an episode. And so what I realized was that is not healing. That's treatment. And treatment is this false idea that we've been sold by the system, that been sold as healing, when we're actually selling ourselves short of what healing truly is. And the other thing that I want to mention is that healing can only come from you and nature, and you are nature. That's the only place healing comes from. Because in modern medicine, the only thing they do in modern medicine is to manipulate. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's a drug or surgery. Okay? If you remove your gallbladder with surgery, you have not corrected the issue. You're going to have issues down the line. Okay? whether it be issues with your vision. I've seen people go blind after removing their gallbladder, whether it be developing type 2 diabetes, okay, and a whole host of other things, digestive issues, and the list goes on and on. So even the surgeries that we're having today, they're only addressing the symptoms. They're never addressing the cause, okay? If you had tumors in your body, and I'm not here to say if you got tumors that are riddled through a portion of your liver, to not have that portion of your liver removed, because the beautiful thing is you can lose up to 2/3 of your liver and still regenerate your liver to 100%. So I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is not you removing that portion of your liver is not going to stop cancer from coming back. If you remove full fibroids through the ablation process, okay, through the surgery, okay, just because you remove the fibroids, it does not mean they're going to come back. I've seen it come back every time. And so that's the important emphasis I want to make to everybody before we jump into this, is that you have to understand the importance of, there's a huge difference between treatment and healing. And this system that we're in is designed to keep you sick, to keep you unhappy, and to keep you overweight. And this system isn't just one part. Each part of the system feeds each other. From the outside looking in, they're in total cahoots. Okay, so that's why, and when I explain it, you'll see a little bit more about what I'm talking about. So let's just get into it. Number one, the number one part of the system is, take a look at our government for just a second. All right. The whole purpose of government, and I think this is what people often forget, is not to govern us necessarily. The whole purpose of the system is to govern the needs of the people. Okay? To govern the needs of the people, because when you think about it, at the end of the day, the money that is causing the government to be able to function is the money that is coming from the people. Okay? But when you start to think about the policies, the regulations, the ability of companies to lobby politicians, as a matter of fact, that should be illegal. For politicians to receive any money from companies should be illegal. And why should it be illegal? Because when they receive money, it's almost an incentive in most cases. Okay? So when you think about the major companies in America, food companies, drug companies, agrochemical companies, okay? When you start to think about these major companies, they're not in business to make healthy food. Because when you make healthy food, again, like, anybody can make healthy food. You can walk out in your backyard and start growing healthy food. All right? They're not in the business to make healthy food. They're in the business to make food that lasts long on the shelf, okay? That makes people addicted to it, okay? And it is cheap, okay? So when these companies are going to our government officials and lobbying them to allow packets of ketchup to be considered a vegetable in our kids' school, that is lobbying for certain amounts of certain kind of chemicals to be put in food, that are lobbying for a certain amount of sugar to be added to things that's not illegal, okay? When they're doing this, it's creating a system that basically says it's okay for you to intoxicate my people, okay? So when you start to think about the government agencies from the standpoint of policies, from the standpoint of laws that are being created, from the standpoint of what is allowed with agencies that are created by the government, like the FDA, who is in charge of food and drug, FDA, and the things that are allowed to be considered food here, and the drugs that are allowed to be approved here. And you think about the fact that in 2018, I believe, there were over 8,000 drug recalls. And some of those drug recalls included some drugs containing carcinogenic substances. Okay, the fact that some drug companies are actually creating drugs that kill thousands of people, and all they have to do is simply pay out a portion of the billions of dollars that they've made. It helps you understand that since nothing is being done about what's being allowed, then the government is in essentially a part of the problem. And when you start to think about where our dollars are being sent, I mean, look at what happened with, how much money we've sent to Ukraine. We've sent over 200 and, well, we sent somewhere around $80 billion, and we're wanting to send another $250 billion, and then more money to Israel as well too. And when you start to think about inflation, how what you were paying for in terms of food in 2021, okay, 2020 versus 2024, every American, if we were to adjust for inflation, every American would need at least 11,400 more dollars to adjust for the cost of inflation. How everything has increased. Insurance premiums, food, everything has increased. For us to adjust for that, what has happened in the last 3 years, and the government was definitely a part of that inflation, every American would have to increase their income by $11,400. Okay? So we have a governmental system that is so broken that it doesn't even realize that it should be positioning the people to not only be healthy, but to have necessities in life that are affordable. Okay. The next thing is media. This is one of the things that I noticed leaving America for over 4 or 5 years, 5 to 6 years, and then coming back. When I was living out of the country, I didn't watch much TV at all. Um, I've never had a television. Well, I don't want to say never, but in the last 15 years, I have never had a television in my room. And when I was out of the country, I only watched movies or specific documentaries that I wanted to watch. So coming back to America for the first time after like 5 or 6 years, when I get here, I'm seeing commercials. And now I'm seeing commercials with a totally different lens. And what I'm realizing is that between the programming, which is what television is programming, between that programming, I'm watching the commercials. The vast majority of the commercials are fast food. Okay. The other commercials that you're seeing are drug commercials. Okay. And many times the commercials are repeating. Okay. So the same commercial you saw at the break before, you're seeing that commercial again. This is why I'm saying that it's programming. You'll never see a commercial for a salad. You'll never see a commercial encouraging people to get out and exercise. You'll never see a commercial for people, saying, hey, use these plant remedies. You'll never see commercials like that. But you'll see a commercial for hamburgers. You'll see a commercial for hot Takis. You'll see a commercial for Fruity Pebbles. You'll rarely ever see a commercial, and I can't think of one, for healthy food. And you have to understand, whatever you listen to, whatever you constantly look at, it is going to program you. Okay? As a matter of fact, in a lot of POW camps, that was part of the interrogation practices, was to make them watch and listen to the same message over and over and over and over until it was so embedded in their head that even if they were to the far left of the message, at some point, because they've heard it and seen it so often, their mind would literally filter in that this is the right thing to do, or this is what I believe in. And when you start to think about, there's only 6 media companies 6 media companies. Well, it's not only 6, but there's 6 media companies in America that make up 90% of US media. Okay? And the vast majority of those messages are the same message being repeated, being programmed into us. So every time our kids, and most of those fast food commercials, they're targeting our children. They're we're already programmed as adults. We have to unravel the programming. Okay? So when we see the commercials, it's just reinforcing the programming. So the commercials are made for our children to indoctrinate them, the drug commercials. So then they get used to saying, hey, when I get sick, this is what I go get. Because otherwise, if, think about it for a second. In America, you can't write a prescription. The only person who can write a prescription in America is a doctor. So why do we need to see the commercials? And the reason why that is because they know if we see the commercial over and over, we'll go into our doctors and say, hey, write this. And then if they don't write the prescription, they'll go to another doctor. So guess what doctors do? They just decide to write the prescription. So then they get to keep their patient. Okay, so it's hugely important to understand that the media is also part of this system that is keeping us sick and obese and depressed. Because when you think about it, you never see good news on news anymore. It's always sadness, horrific, this horrific thing happened today. This shooting happened. These people are getting at war. It's always horrible messaging. Okay. So it's programming us to be in fear. It's programming us to want fast food. It's programming us to say, when I get sick, I need a drug. Okay. Part of the system. All right. The other thing that has been a huge part of the system and how it keeps us sick is healthcare. When you think about healthcare today, and again, I come from healthcare. I've been in healthcare for over 20 years. And what I can tell you is this: it's not what I thought it was, to say the least, and to be nice. But one of the things that I learned about healthcare was the fact that the third leading cause of death in America, the third leading cause of death is medical error. Let me explain what I mean by that. And this isn't just something, I'm saying without any backing. According to the BMJ, which is the British Medical Journal, preventable deaths due to medical error accounted for somewhere around 400,000 deaths. That's around 62% of all hospital deaths. Okay? Preventable, most importantly, preventable deaths, according to the BMJ, British Medical Journal. Now, the reason why that's so important is because you ever seen like the cartoons where people are like walking off of a plank into the water or diving off of a mountain into water or whatever it may be? We're literally walking ourselves into an early grave. And we're in a system, and specifically in this case, I'm talking about we're in a healthcare system that unfortunately is a huge part of the problem. And nobody is addressing this pink elephant in the room. Nobody's trying to understand why medical error, preventable deaths in the hospital, under the care of healthcare professionals, preventable deaths like they got the right drug, the right surgery, the right drug at the right dose. Everything was done right, and the patient still died. Why is that the third leading cause of death? You have to think about that for a second. Okay? There's only 2 above that. So essentially, the third leading cause of death being the hospital, being medical care, it shows you that the system is a part of the problem. And when you think about it, I want you to think, and I mention this example all the time. When you go into the hospital, it doesn't feel like someplace you want to be. Most people are afraid of the hospital, and it's a healthy fear. And when you go into the hospital, if you're an inpatient, look at the food that they give you. Okay? Look at the risks that people sort of expose themselves to when it comes to hospital acquired infection. Look at those numbers. How many people are actually getting an infection by actually going to the hospital? Look at the kind of food that they have for, as restaurants at the hospital. Look at the kind of food that you'll see doctors eating. I used to be in those lines. So when you start to look at our healthcare system and start to think how the foundations of health aren't being taught, aren't being recommended, aren't being put on prescription pads. Nobody's saying, hey, this is the kind of diet you need. This is the things you need to adjust in your diet. I need you to get off the couch more. No more watching episodes or whatever it is on Netflix. I need you to spend your Netflix time walking around the track. None of that is going on a prescription, and all of that is the foundation of health. 76% of African Americans are vitamin D deficient. I think somewhere around 60% of Americans in general. Vitamin D plays a critical role in our immune system and so many other things as well too. Nobody's emphasizing on the prescription pad when you have vitamin D deficiency, how much sun do you need to get? As a matter of fact, they're telling you the opposite thing. They're telling you you probably need to stay out of the sun because it'll cause cancer. So when you think about our hospital system and even how sometimes the system is incentivized by people being sick, okay? We saw that during the pandemic, how when people came into the hospital, the hospital system was incentivized. It was incentivized, either 19,000 or 39,000. If this patient had this, they get this. If this patient had this, they get this amount of money. So when the system is incentivized for people to be sick, then guess what? People are going to be sick. Okay? And I've talked about this before, the power of diagnosis. When somebody tells you you're sick, how that triggers your body, how that triggers your programming in your mind, and how powerful your mind is to make you sick, okay? To make you commit to those habits that were making you sick in the first place. So it's hugely important to understand that our hospital and healthcare system is a huge part of the system that is keeping us sick too, because it's not a system that is based on health. It's a system that's based on sickness, okay? The other part is the American food. The American food here. American food is banned in a lot of countries. It's banned in all of Europe. It's banned in Japan. It's banned in Russia. It's banned in a lot of countries. As a matter of fact, there are things that are very simple that you would never think, why is this banned? I did a whole entire video on that, so go check that video out. The U.S. foods that are banned in in U.S. countries, other countries. So go check that out. But for instance, milk. Milk is banned. U.S. milk is banned in other countries. Why? Because it contains a hormone called RBGH. Okay? You can't put exogenous hormones in human beings or any other animal and not expect them to be affected by it. This is why there's so many hormonal issues in both men and women today. Okay, BVO, brominated vegetable oil, banned in other countries, but legal here. Okay, azodicarbonamide, okay, it's put in bread, it's banned in the AU, it's banned in Australia. Okay, it's been shown to cause kidney and thyroid cancer. Okay, Subway uses it in their bread, no problem. It's quite often in their bread, okay? So it's hugely important to understand that it's used as a bleaching agent, but yeah, it causes cancer. Okay, it causes a whole lot of digestive issues. And that's most American bread has not only that chemical, but potassium bromate as well too. And sugar, high fructose corn syrup in most cases. I can go down a whole list of chemicals that are in bread that are not in bread in other countries. So that's banned in other, most fish banned in other countries. Farm raised salmon banned in other countries. Most children's cereals, most children's cereals in America are banned in other countries. Okay, arsenic in chicken feed. This is not only that reason why American chicken is banned in other countries, but they also cleanse and rinse the chicken with chloride. Okay, which is a carcinogen. Okay, and they put arsenic in the chicken feed as well too. All right, so American chicken is banned in other countries. All right, pork, they put ractopamine in the feed as well too, which is another toxin. Glyphosate in most in countries in the EU, that means that's 28 countries in Europe, Russia, China, Japan. Genetically modified foods are banned. Did you know genetically modified foods represent 80% of all processed foods here in America? Let me explain what a processed food is. If you get anything in a box, bag, can, jar, anything that's not a whole food, 80% of the time it's genetically modified. And 92% of the time if it's corn, and 94% of the time if it's soy. And most things have corn and soy in them. Okay, so it's hugely important to understand that all of these chemicals that are in the food, that are in the environment, they are approved by the FDA, which is a governmental agency. They are approved by the EPA, which is a governmental agency. So it's hugely important to know and understand that we have a food system, a food industry here that is monitored by the government, but allowed to poison us. And this is why we're so sick. Okay. And then the last thing is big pharma. When you start to think about it, every year drugs are approved year after year as if it's just candy. And I'll tell you, there isn't a drug that actually heals anybody. You have to remember what the definition of true healing is. It's not treatment. Treatment is the removal of symptoms. Treatment is the manipulation of biochemistry. Healing is the correction of biochemistry. Healing addresses the cause, which addresses the symptoms. Huge difference between the two. There's not one drug that has ever been approved, including antibiotics. Okay? They remove the symptoms. And let me explain why. And I'm not saying that antibiotics have absolutely no use, but it's important to know when you consume antibiotics, they kill all of your good bacteria in your gut. It's like taking a grenade and throwing it in your gut and in your body. And in your microbiome, that good bacteria in your gut is responsible for about 80% of your immunity. It's responsible for maintaining a healthy weight. It's responsible for 90% of serotonin, which is a happy molecule that keeps you from being depressed. So even though it may got rid of the symptoms of the infection, it does not mean that it has addressed the cause. Because we can be in a room and there'll be 100 people in the room, and let's just call it work environment, and a flu breaks out. Not 100% of the people get the flu. And that's not because they didn't come in contact with somebody who had it. That's because their immune system is set up in such a way where they had the ability to fight it. And when we live the right type of lifestyle, then we have that ability as well too. So big pharma, when you think about the third leading cause of death is medical error, big pharma plays a huge role in that. And when you start to think about all of the billions of dollars that are made by big pharma, and all of the hundreds of thousands of people who are killed by drug interactions, killed by the side effects of drugs, whose health is ruined by the side effects of drugs, you start to understand that when you look at this system all together instead of looking at it individually, this is what you get. You get toxic media that is programming us to want fast food because we're seeing it all the time. You get toxic media that is programming us to believe that when we get sick, we go get a medication. Sometimes it makes us believe that we're sick when we're not even actually sick. That's how strong the programming is. That toxic media promotes toxic food consumption. So now we're eating foods, ice cream, hamburgers, fries, creamy pasta, whatever it may be. We're eating tons of toxic food that is helping to disintegrate our health. Okay? That creates disease. Okay? So that food and the negativity in the media is basically programming us to eat unhealthy and to think unhealthy. Okay? Which creates disease. That feeds the healthcare system, which is a sick care system because it's not even there to help people get back to their health. I've never seen anybody go into the hospital and actually get back to their health. They slowly but surely degenerate. And what I mean by that is you may go in the hospital and they get your blood pressure to go back to, what is considered normal. Okay? Again, manipulation, not correction. But you have to take that medication the rest of your life. And I've never seen anybody start with one medication and end with one medication. They start with one, a diuretic, then they go to an ARB, then they go to an ACE inhibitor, and then maybe they get a beta blocker. Then they start hitting them with the strong stuff. So it just progressively gets worse over time. Nobody just sticks with the one medication. That shows you that it's getting progressively worse. Okay? So we got a healthcare system that is built on sickness. So when you come in, they're not looking to make you healthy. They're looking to help get rid of the symptoms. Okay? That healthcare system feeds the insurance industry, which causes now, because people are so sick, now the premiums go up through the roof. At no level in all of these symptoms, all these systems, at no level is there any incentive for you to be healthy. No incentive on any level for you to be healthy. There's no incentive for the media because then they wouldn't get the advertisement dollars for those fast food commercials. Who's going to pay for a kale commercial? Nobody. Drug companies pay billions of dollars for commercials. Food companies pay billions of dollars for commercials. Okay? There's no incentive on the media level. There's no incentive on the food industry level for you to be healthy either. Because guess what? If you were eating whole foods, real foods, then guess what? People go back to growing their own food, finding their own food, going back to the farmer. No incentive on the food industry level. No incentive on the healthcare level. Okay? If there were an incentive, when people got healthy, the insurance company should have to pay that person back. That should be an incentive. If I'm paying you, if I have a family, let's say I'm paying $1,000 a month for my family, that's $12,000 a year. And if at the end of the year, nobody was sick, I should get at least 80% of my money back. That would incentivize me to do the same thing, the same way they do with car insurance. Okay, to give you some of the money back, they give you some extra savings. They don't do that. No incentives on a healthcare level, no incentives on the insurance level. They want you to be sick. Okay? So what you have to understand is this is why it's so important that you take ownership of your health, because we're in a system that is designed for us to be sick, overweight, unhappy, and crawl into our graves. Okay? I say this all the time. There's no money in healthy people. There's no money in people like me. I get a checkup every year. That's it. That's it. I haven't had to go to the doctor in probably 15 years. 15, 18 years probably. Haven't had to go to a doctor or anything. I go to the dentist, I get a tooth cleaning. Okay, maybe $200 for the year. The checkup, I could have paid them, let's say $500 because I like to get labs. So that's $700. There's no incentive for me to have anything other than catastrophic healthcare insurance, all right, which is much cheaper. So there's no incentive for a healthy person to get expensive healthcare insurance. There's no incentive for me to go to the doctor because I'm healthy. So an 800-bed hospital goes down to a 100-bed hospital if everybody got healthy, all right? There's no, like, if I don't eat unhealthy fast food, guess what? Most of the food companies dissolve. People start growing their own food, sharing food with each other again, going back to that system. Food companies go to zilch, okay? We save a whole lot of money as well, too, all right? Our government saves a whole lot of money because guess what? They're spending billions of dollars to subsidize meat and dairy, but they never subsidize vegetables and fruits, okay? Making them cheaper for us. Again, not incentivizing you to be healthy, incentivizing you to drink the milk and eat the cheese that is banned in 30 countries, to incentivize you to eat the meat that is banned in 30 countries. So there's no incentive on any level for you to be healthy. So it's important that you know and understand the most revolutionary thing that you could ever do is to get healthy, because you break down this entire system when you do so. I hope this has sort of inspired you to think differently about health, not only for you, but for the future generation as well, too. All right, share this video with somebody. This is the grassroots program or content or community that I want to create, that is not just about me, it's about us and how we share this information to change the community, to change how we think about food, to change how we think about how we live our lives, to change or break generational curses, okay? That include generational health curses as well too, of diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, autoimmune conditions, cancer. All of these are chronic illnesses that are not necessarily connected to your genetics. They are connected to what is called epigenetics, which is your lifestyle. Please share this video to somebody you love, you care about. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Until the next time, peace and blessings, and Godspeed.